Welcome, everybody. My name is Chris Alexander. I am a reference librarian at the Saratoga Springs Public Library. We're delighted to have Suzanne Balet Haight again to talk about gardening. And the topic today, 10 fall gardening tasks for a better spring garden. So Suzanne, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Suzanne Balet Haight. I own Balet Flowers and Design. If you have been to our greenhouse, it's kind of on a back road, but it is, I guess, a treasured nursery in the area that we have gardens that you can walk through, and also a cut flower garden where you can pick your own bouquet, and lots of perennials and flowering shrubs and a variety of different herbs and veggies. So in our gardens, we have to do a lot of fall cleanup and getting ready for spring. And today I wanted to talk about 10 fall gardening tasks for a better spring garden. So there's lots of things you can do. We often leave things till the spring because we think, oh, it's better to plant in the spring, but actually it's great to plant in the fall. So there's a lot of little information out there that you can either do in the spring or fall, but I find I have more time in the fall. So I want to do as many jobs as I possibly can to get ready for spring and have my gardens easy in the spring and just start to bloom and be ready. So let's see. We first want to assess the look. So assess your garden, see what's blooming. Look at pictures throughout the year and see like what's blooming spring, summer, fall, even in the winter. What does your winter garden look like? So now is a good time to look back at some of those pictures and then assess and say, I'd like more spring flowering blossoms, or more summer flowering, or I have no flowers in June. So think about the things that the color that you need at certain times of the year. This is a garden that, you know, I take pictures. So you can see lots of things in bloom in June, July. This is about that period of time. So you have Asiatic lilies, Coreopsis moonbeam. I love this because it blooms all season. And we have yarrow, liatris is about ready to start, and yellow yarrow. This is the pink yarrow. Daylilies, a variety of different kinds. So assess your garden and see like, okay, this has got lots of color this time of year, and then assess it mid-season. We have phlox, Annabelle hydrangeas. This is probably around July, late July, early August. And you have Annabelle hydrangeas that have turned green, anise hyssop that attract the butterflies and bees, lots of pollinators, and even the phlox attracts lots of pollinators. And we have like mildew resistant phlox in here. So I try to reduce the disease problems by using plants that have some of those resistances. Anise hyssop, Goldstrom rudbeckia, sedum. Like, what is the look that you're looking for, and what color do you need in your garden at different times? Purple cone flowers. This is Baptisia that blooms blue in the spring. Golden glow, a perennial sunflower, Artemisia. Some of these things kind of grow together, and then it keeps down the weeds because the plants are shading out the weeds. Ornamental grasses are kind of fun to incorporate into your garden if you want a little bit of texture. This is late July, and you have the Goldstrom rudbeckia and variegated miscanthus and zebra miscanthus. And then there's a spring bloomer here. This is Spirea nipponica, which is gold mound spirea. So you have like a white flower in June. There's actually a peony in here that blooms in June, and then the Goldstrom rudbeckia comes afterward. And there's a perennial sunflower over on the side that blooms a little bit earlier than the Goldstrom. I wanted to just point out this. You want to look at colors, shapes, sizes. This is, I would say, July, August, September. The flowers on the hydrangea tree are starting to turn pink. You have the dark foliage of the 9-bark, little devil 9-bark, potentilla, goldfinger, Weigelia, and dwarf hydrangea. That looks like strawberry sundae. And then we have catmint, which is a June, July. It kind of blooms throughout the season, but if you cut it back, it blooms again. And daylilies. So you have different colorations coming through here. A low-growing sedum, Vera Jameson, really gorgeous in the fall. We have lots of different colors here. So in spring, you have coreopsis, Jacob's ladder, and then comes the daylilies and catmint. And then irises are also in the back, where you have lots of June, July bloomers. And then the phlox start, and then the black-eyed Susans and the coreopsis continue. The sedum offer texture with the green buds, and then they turn pink. And then the Vera Jameson in the front offers that nice dark color. So these are just some ideas of like continuous color through the season. So after you assess your garden, you want to make sure that you can see your plants. So weeding is a really essential. So make sure you get in between the plants, see each of the plants. So then you can decide what you're going to do next. Are you going to add, change your garden around? So as long as it's well weeded, you'll be able to see your plants and then decide what you're going to do next and where you need extra plants. So just keep those gardens weeded. And if you choose to save some of your seeds, you want to take, this is a Mexican sunflower, and up here there's an old flower. So some of those old flowers provide food for the birds, but also the seeds will mature. So as they don't look that great when they're past, but the seed, if you want to save those seeds, you want to make sure that they dry out and you're able to use them for next season's growing. Because there might be a variety of like Mexican sunflower, Tithonia, that you want to save and you aren't able to, it's hard to find those seeds. So think about what you would want to save and try it out. Sunflowers, the center, this one is not quite mature. The outside, the pollen has come out and the seeds are more mature on the outside, but you need the pollen to be fully mature in the center before you actually save those sunflower seeds. And the birds may get some on the outside because the outside ones become more mature faster. But wait for it to fully mature and lose its petals, and then you can save those sunflower seeds too. Your annual flowers, the Carmine Keys Gomphrena, or there's Strawberry Fields, which is a red, or there's purple, Gomphrena, pink, white. They come in a lot of different colors. But as far as the saving the seeds, you want to pull off the ones that are fully mature and they start to lose a few petals on the outside. So those seeds are encapsulated with the outer skin of the flower, and then you want to save those and dry them out really thoroughly and then save them in a paper bag so they don't mold. Garlic chives, you can save the seeds on these, but I also want to say, like, sometimes it's good to cut things back. Garlic chives seem to see themselves everywhere. They have little black seeds in the center, and irises are the same way. Siberian iris will have little black seeds, and you just shake them and you get little irises everywhere. So some of them you want to save, and some of them you may want to cut back before they actually form seeds. And this is brown-eyed Susans, Rudbeckia triloba, and this self-seeds readily if you have really good soil, but you can also save the more mature seed heads. And if they've lost their petals on the outside, they're generally more mature. So those are the seed heads that you want to save. Cosmos are another really great one, an annual to save. But the brown-eyed Susans, the garlic chives, those are pretty easy seeds to save. Oh, and there's Baptisia here. It has a brown seed pod, and the Baptisia or false indigo, has a blue flower like lupine, and the seed, I've grown them from seed. It takes about 3 years for them to actually form a nice sized plant. So it does take a little while for some of those perennials, but some produce in the first year. And then number 4, you want to prune shrubs, cut back perennials, and make the area a little bit cleaner. This is a fairly new garden, but like getting ready for winter, everything was cut back. The coral bells, we left some leaves because it kind of protects the plant for the winter. Ornamental grasses are the same way. If you leave about 12 inches of old stems, it actually insulates and protects the grass and it helps it to come back for next year. So cutting back will just clean up your garden and keep it, fresh and clean, and you can see which plants are where. And dividing. So that's one of my favorite things to do. There's my flat shovel. It's my magic shovel. I feel like it's one of the best tools. It goes right through the center. What I do when I divide is take a hosta. I'll divide the hosta right through the center. I might leave part of the plant in the ground and then take half of it out. And then I'll take that half and maybe divide it in 2 or 3 pieces and place them in other spots where I really love that hosta and I want to make more of the same one. It's sometimes harsh. It feels harsh, but it's really great for the plants to start dividing and make new plants from. Shasta daisies are really great to do that with, and irises. Irises have a very strong root system. So as you're dividing through the iris or ornamental grasses, you probably want to sharpen your shovel before you go through that, because it is a little bit more challenging to get through. But I love the flat shovel, and it's fantastic to make more of the plants that you really love in your garden. These are some of the plants I probably would divide. Some of the hosta, ligularia. Oh, the ligularia has formed brown seed heads on it, so that would be a good one to save the seeds on. And but my favorite thing to do is divide the ligularia. This variety is the rocket. It has a beautiful yellow flower on it in July. And I just go through the center, and then I take smaller divisions, and then I'll plant them in other spots in my garden where I need more. Or if I have a landscape that I'm doing and I really need a piece of ligularia, I'll divide my ligularia and use a big section of that for a customer's house. This one here is Semicifuga atropurpurea, bugbane, and that's a great September bloomer. But I've also taken divisions from that, and I leave a good portion of the plant in the ground, and then I take some side shoots from that area. And Chalone or turtlehead, another one that spreads a little bit. The plant gets a little bit too wide, so I want to shrink the size of that and then take out a big section maybe through here so the Annabelle hydrangea can be seen a little bit more. And the hosta, I would just take my shovel and divide it right down the center. Daylilies are another easy one to divide, and I just go right down the center. I might leave some, or I might pull out that plant to give it a little bit more space so it has more room to grow for next year. So another thing you can do for fall is add plants and bulbs. So adding plants could be your divisions. So you see what you have in your garden and assess what could be divided and where you could use more of that plant. It could be that you don't want any more of that plant and you just want to get rid of it or give it to a friend that might be able to use it. Those are some special things, being able to share some of your plants that you really treasure with some friends. And adding bulbs too will add good color, especially in the spring. Bleeding heart, right now they look terrible. They die back down to the ground, but it's a great time to plant them because you'll be ready for spring. It'll be right before they start to bloom, and they'll like form this beautiful bush in early May, and it's just a fabulous plant to add right now. And there's a lot of plants that are on sale and easy to get. Sometimes you just have to go to different nurseries and see what's available at different ones. Some people are out of stock and some people have a lot of different things. So peonies are another one. It usually takes about 3 years if it's a small plant for it to actually produce, but awesome to add to your garden, especially for a June bloomer. There's also feverfew here. This is a double feverfew. That one does self-seed in random places, but the actual plant does well as in the space as well. Here's an idea for peonies. This is a large peony, and then this is the baptisia I was talking about. That these blue flowers will form seeds, and you can save those seeds and start little ones. The peonies, I have also divided them. If I really love that variety and I want to make more, I'll divide this, and then I'll take the roots are very big. So I divide them and I'll either pot them up or place them in another part of my garden. Blue salvia, really easy to divide or add to your garden. It's a nice in-between season. There's also white salvia, and it's I would say June, July is about the time that it is blooming. Hostas, always a great addition. Brunera, this is Jack Frost Brunera, but there's also other variegated Bruneras or the green leaf Brunera, and they look like forget-me-nots, but they stay in their clump mostly. Occasionally they'll self-seed, but I just love the variegation next to other plants. So always look at your garden, assess your garden, and look at those plants and see where you could add new plants, or not just to add plants, but to accent the space and accent the other plants that are there and make them stand out. So what is it that you're going to add that's going to make things stand out? It may be variegation, it may be a large leaf, it may be an iris leaf that's more pointy, or there's also variegated iris, which are really pretty, with a purple flower. So there's a lot of different accents that you could add. Dark foliage, light foliage. So really assess your garden, take pictures at different seasons and see what would be a good additive. This is an ornamental grass. This is, let's see, Korean feather reed grass. And then echinacea, powwow wildberry, Nicky phlox, and then we have lamium at the base. So the lamium kind of keeps down the weeds, but you could easily divide out some of that and move it to another section of your garden. Really assess your garden and see like where you could add to what you already have to really accentuate the plants. This is the Submissive Fuga Atropurpurea bugbane with the dark foliage. I love that one this time of year. And a few other things that you could add, like a dark foliage, the Physocarpus, the little devil nine bark, lilacs. There's a lot of different varieties. Korean lilacs. This is James McFarland, which is a late blooming lilac. There is a bloomerang lilac, which a lot of people are loving because it blooms again and again. And spireas, this is gold mound spirea with a pink flower. And then there was the snow mound spirea, which I showed you earlier. It wasn't in bloom, but there's green, there's yellow leaves, there's a variety of different. And Weigela, I love adding Weigela, the dark foliage, there's variegated foliage. So fine wine Weigela is this variety, and it blooms once, but a lot of times it'll bloom again. And viburnums, this is snow mound, or a snowball viburnum, American cranberry bush, but there's also popcorn viburnum, Viburnum mauricii, and some are deer resistant, which you also may be a concern for you. So lilacs and viburnums, spireas, all of these are actually deer resistant. It doesn't mean that they might taste, they could taste it, but for the most part, they kind of stay away from those, especially if there's other tasty things around. So fall blooming shrubs, summer, I love the hydrangeas. They just add so much color. I love the little devil nine bark with either diamond rouge, hydrangea, or firelight. It's just so pretty. And then Carl Forrester grass with it. I love that combination together. But there's also, so the dark foliage of the it's right here. The nine bark is right next to it. And then the hydrangea will give you that summer, fall bloom. Winterberry could be a nice additive for the, or dogwood for winter characteristic, the red twig dogwood, the yellow twig dogwood. They're all like interesting in a lot of different ways. So when you're assessing your garden, like you just need to look at it from the whole. So try to look at those pictures, or try to envision what was blooming in June, what was blooming in the summer, fall, and then winter characteristic. And it may be adding an evergreen. I guess I love the flowering, so I'm always thinking flowers, but the evergreens are always a nice addition to accent. And then in the fall, adding a little bit of color, the mums, flowering kale. This is a chorus right here, a variegated grass that is beautiful in pots, but then you could actually put it in your garden afterward. So it could be, and same with the mums. If you're buying the hardy mums, then you can plant them in your garden, and a lot of times they'll come back. Not always, but a good portion of the time. The earlier you can plant them in the ground, the better root system they'll get, and the more apt they'll come back. Window boxes, this is just fall, like get some color in your window boxes that might last through the cool season. It may not be getting ready for spring, but it's making you happy getting ready for the fall. And then if you use something like ivy, you can actually bring it inside for the winter and use it as a house plant. So you can repurpose some of your items that you might use in a window box. And like I said, now's the time for sales. So fill up your car. Like you can save a lot of money on perennials and get them in the ground, and you'll have beautiful flowers for spring, because fall is a great time for root growth. And then like September, October, if you get them in the ground now, they'll form a good root system and be hardy for spring. And then in the spring, you're just going to have a bigger plant because the roots have already formed, and it's going to focus on the foliage. So as far as planting time, fall is a great time for planting. Bulbs, little crocuses are one of the first to come up. It just brings so much joy when you first see that first flower come up. Tulips, hyacinths are in the back here, white, purple, pink. They come in a lot of colors. Daffodils, more hyacinths, allium. These are great bulbs to plant in the fall. This is a drumstick allium here, and that's a July bloomer, but you can also plant those in the fall and have them ready for spring. One thing I wanted to just mention about the bulbs, things that are more deer resistant, some that may be a concern for you. The tulips, sometimes the rabbits or the deer love them. But the daffodils, the hyacinths, blue muscari, the grape hyacinths, and allium, they're all deer resistant and fabulous to plant and give you nice color in the spring. And then assess the health of your plants. I find the best time to fertilize is fall and spring. So I do an application of ProGrow, which is an organic fertilizer that builds up your soil, and putting that around your plants will just make them healthier for spring. And then I usually do another application in April or May when we get a lot of rain, and it just gives them a good start. And insulate your sensitive plants. So some of the sensitive plants I think of are lavender, which you can put some straw or extra mulch around the base of them. And some lavender are more sensitive than others. Some are zone 5, 6, and some are zone 4 or 5. So Munstead lavender and hide coat lavender I find are the most hardy in our area. But I've also grown Grasso lavender and Phenomenal, and some of those I put in my high tunnel because they have a little bit extra protection for the winter. But you can also put straw or hay and wrap them with burlap or an insulation fabric around it, as long as it's not plastic. And that will help ensure that the lavender come back. So insulating your plants will ensure beautiful blooms for spring. Gaura is another one that sometimes a little bit of mulch over the top. It's a zone 5 plant. So plants that you might have had problems with could just benefit from a little insulation. And that probably is just either pine boughs over the top or a little extra compost that you rake away in the spring. And leaves can also act as a mulch on your garden. So as they break down, they can work good nutrients into the soil, as long as it's not leaves that you find are infested, or if they have a fungus on them, it's better to rake those away. But if you feel like your leaves are a good source of mulch, then that would be a good one to put around it. Hydrangeas are one that we insulate frequently, especially the endless summer variety. They get either blue blooms or pink blooms depending on the acidity of the soil. But we usually cut our hydrangeas to about 2 feet, 18 inches to 2 feet. And then we wrap burlap around the plant and tie it off with wire and stuff the inside with either straw or leaves, whichever you have more of, or is easier for you. And then we cover the top with burlap as well. And then we find that ensures a little bit more blossoms in the spring. So if you insulate your plants, it can help certain plants just do a little bit better. And we also make sure that we fertilize. And I never fertilize in the center of the plant. I always fertilize in a circle around the plant so it doesn't burn the roots. And with hydrangeas, they do like it a little bit more acidic, and you could use hollytone around the plant, or you can do the ProGrow with a triple phosphate as well to ensure flowering and root growth. This is a twist and shout hydrangea, and it's in the Endless Summer series. And this one, for some reason, I never insulate because it seems to bloom on a more regular basis. So I don't usually insulate this one, and it's been very reliable of a bloomer for me. And I recommend it to a lot of people that are looking for those blue hydrangeas. It doesn't have the fluffiness of the traditional Endless Summer, but it does offer like that hydrangea feel in your garden. And you can make it more blue if you add sulfur to the soil or hollytone to acidify the soil. And mulch. So spring isn't just for mulching. You can mulch in the fall as well. And a fresh coat of mulch can really see the plants that you have. But one of the things I do is place newspaper down underneath the mulch first. So I layer a layer of newspaper, I overlap some of the edges, and then that keeps any weed seeds from germinating for the next year. It doesn't mean that weed seeds couldn't blow in on the top, but it does keep a lot of the weed seeds at bay. So keep doing a layer of newspaper and then mulch will keep your garden nice and fresh, and it helps reduce the labor in the spring that you might, just run out of time. I know we do. And you can see each of the plants. The mulch really separates everything. And as far as mulch goes, we try to use an undyed material. So fine premium mulch, which is a little bit more brown, or we use compost. That's a weed-free compost, and lay that over the newspaper. And then that also feeds the plants throughout the season too, and into the spring if you do it in the fall. And tool maintenance, our last on the list. Important to keep your pruners sharp, shovels sharp. We use a grinder to sharpen the shovels. We have just a variety of different ways that we do it. Is we usually clean off the tools with a rag or wash it with water, get off any of the dirt, and then we sharpen the tools, and then we oil them. So we put a little bit of oil to keep any rust from happening over the tools. And we find that it keeps the tools pretty well for most of the season, but it's coming to the end of the season. So I feel like we need to start doing our tool maintenance a little bit early this year. So having sharp equipment, so you can prune any of your shrubs, prune any of your plants back. We also use a soil knife. I don't know if any of you have used one, but a soil knife is also fantastic. It's very sharp, and it cuts back perennials like butter, especially if it's super sharp and sharpened. So that's one of my favorite hand tools. And then, of course, my magic shovel, the flat shovel, is fantastic. So 10 fall gardening tasks for better spring gardens. I hope you've learned quite a bit today. So we want to assess the garden, look at all aspects of your garden, take pictures, look at the texture, color, height, spacing of all of your plants, and decide what needs to be moved or divided. You want to weed your garden. And if you choose to save some seeds from the growing season, then make sure the flowers are fully mature, and then you can dry out the seeds and save them in a paper bag so they stay nice and dry. Make sure the moisture is out of them so they don't mold. And prune and cut back your shrubs after they're done flowering. I didn't quite mention that. The best time to prune your shrubs is after they flowered. So it might be a viburnum is one that you want to prune in the spring after it's done flowering, or a lilac you want to prune after it's done flowering, because you don't want to take away the buds for the next year. And there may be exceptions because you're just ready to have a smaller plant. So, and then add plants, add bulbs, assess the health of your garden, of your plants, fertilize as needed, and insulate those sensitive plants. The endless summer hydrangea, definitely one that I feel benefits from the insulation, and lavender often. And then mulch, ideally newspaper. You can use a weed barrier if you're having a lot of problems in your garden. That's a fabric type material, but I like the newspaper best because you can actually plant through it for the next season, and the bulbs will come up through the newspaper no problem because they have a very strong leader. And then tool maintenance, clean, sharpen, and organize your tools. That's one thing I always can use help with, is better organization. I guess that happens for a lot of people. And once you have everything in line, I feel like these are great tips for a better spring garden. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed 10 tips for a better spring garden, and I hope you can join us for the next Zoom meeting.